Hello and welcome back to Typical City. We now have a date. A trial date has now been set between the Premier League and Manchester City to go to blows, locking horns, taking on one another in the most seismic, biggest trial ever involving the Premier League. And Manchester City are at the other side of it. It's in the blue corner of Manchester City, and in the very much red Liverpool, Arsenal, Manchester United, red corner are also there is the Premier League sat waiting for them in the corner of the ring, and I'm excited. There is a large amount of waiting time, unfortunately, and I think a lot of neutral fans are frustrated at that, so they can carry on for another year wondering, hoping that Manchester City are cheats, and City fans have to spend another year patting away those accusations. But before I get into more detail about this and the reports that it's coming from, I just wanted to say thank you to you guys, because I'm now at 7,000 subscribers. I only started the channel in July, so what we are now, November, final day of November, still in November, 5 months, 7,000 subscribers. Only really just started, you know, as a channel that started purely from scratch with no foundation on YouTube whatsoever to begin with. I haven't been anywhere else on YouTube to build my channel, and purely from scratch, right from the ground up, from the get-go. It's been really good, and that's thanks to you guys. So I really want to thank you very much. I do read a lot of the comments that I see as well, and some of you guys from the start have been so supportive, and some of you newcomers have been equally supportive. And the words you guys put in those comment sections are so nice. Even the nasty ones, that you guys are welcome as well. Bat away all you want. Come in the comments and call Manchester City cheats all you want. It doesn't hurt me, because I know it's not true. We're going to find out the hard way, aren't we, come the end of 2024, 2025. But let's get into it, because this is coming from Mike Keegan of the Daily Mail, who's suggesting that the trial date will be at the end of autumn 2024. So just under a year, basically, before the end of autumn as well, which suggests the season will have started by that point. And the verdict will be expected to be handed out at 2024-2025, at the end of that season. And then there's very likeliness, it's very likely that City will have to appeal it, or the Premier League will have to appeal it. I imagine if you're City fans, we're going to have it's going to be bad news from the Premier League, because I feel they're integrated into this, and I know some of you will think, oh, he's got his tinfoil hat on, conspiracy theorist. Rival fans will celebrate the first verdict, but I can almost guarantee if it's not established by this independent panel that the Premier League have set up, so how independent is it, really? Once the verdict's been achieved between the Premier League and Manchester City, I've got a feeling it's going to be a case of, yeah, you're guilty, and here's a massive point deduction. I think that's what the Premier League are going to do. There's two things with that. First of all, it's going to get appealed. So what do you do moving forward? And second of all, the credibility of this independent panel is immediately brought into question, hence why it's going to go to an appeal. And with the punishment that might be handed out, how do you hand out a punishment with there's still plenty of runway for City to take off and reverse these manipulations from the Premier League? How do you punish a team that is yet to have the final hammer being smashed down in that courtroom to say that is it, decision been made? Because this will go to the Supreme Court, or even to the European courts or the commercial courts for business. This will go beyond what the Premier League are doing, and they think they're law. They think they are the law. They are not the law. When the law gets involved, then we'll really find out. And if City decide to take this and appeal this beyond the Premier League, I think the rest of the footballing world can start to panic, because it's a case of, oh, hang on a minute, you've all decided to put your eggs in the Premier League basket. What a fool you are if you've done that. Do you really believe in the Premier League? What's their track record look like to you? What does their Premier League track record look like? As an organisation, it's just riddled with toxicity and mismanagement and corruption already. We've all seen the FIFA documentaries and things like that. You think the Premier League are nice and squeaky clean, do you? You fools. What's wrong with you? Honestly, do you really think the Premier League? No, because what suits your agenda is calling Manchester City cheats. That's what suits your agenda, because City are top of the Premier League, or were top of the Premier League. There certainly are plenty of trophy cabinets being filled in the Manchester City trophy cabinet. Museums now are filled with Premier League trophies, trebles, Champions Leagues, FA Cups. That's what City win now, because we are that club that wins everything. We're that club. You have to take pot shots at us. That's what makes you feel better. It prevents insomnia, you know? It helps you sleep. You know, calling us cheats gives you a reason to wake up in the morning and carry on following football because you know your team is forever in second place to Manchester City, because if you're not first, you're second. Wherever you are in the world, you're beneath Manchester City. Right now, as a football fan, that's what you are. And to help you feel better, you have to call us cheats. So I understand that. If it helps you feel better, okay. But you are putting all your faith in the Premier League. And I have every confidence in their incompetence, because they are going to fuck this royally. And there are examples being proven already from the very minute this started with the Premier League. We've already put UEFA in the bin. We did that already. Premier League, come on down. You're next. You're next to open the bin lid and in you get. Do you know what I mean? That's Premier League. They're next. That's what's going to happen, I'm afraid. And they already started it from the minute one. The second they published all the charges, they got them all wrong. They had them referenced wrong. So we know that's what we're going up against. We're going up against an organisation that their very first point of contact with the public was to release these charges for you guys to read. You can all go and read it. And they got it wrong. And they had to redo their whole statement from the very beginning. The very first statement that they released, wrong. They got it all wrong. All the charges were referenced wrong with outdated rules, and that's an indication of how well they're ran, because they're constantly changing the rules, and this goes to financial fair play as well, and how they're constantly changing the rules, and why City are going to be found innocent eventually. Eventually we're going to have our name cleared, whether it's through a defamation act or whatever sort of legal proceedings we take beyond this point. We are eventually going to be found innocent. That's my belief. If we're found completely with categoric evidence and the burden of proof is slammed down at Manchester City's side of the court case and we have nothing to fire back at them and we go, okay, we've been caught, then I will come on this channel and I will hold my hands up. I have every belief that day will never come. I have every belief that day will never come. And when all these minions that are swarming in the comment sections of videos like this to call us cheats, and in the comment sections of all the other channels that they wank themselves silly over to the imagination of Manchester City being relegated. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? Honestly, I'd never ever in a million years want Manchester United to get relegated. I do not want that to ever happen. Liverpool, Arsenal, I don't want them to get relegated ever. Do you know why? Because I take more satisfaction from beating you. And I've got a very good first-hand experience of doing that as a Manchester City fan. I know what it feels like to see you be second, always, to Manchester City. United have tried. Title race with them, second place. Arsenal tried it, second place. Liverpool have tried it so many times they've finished just second. And they are getting sick of it. I understand that. And that's their verdict, is it? That's what they want. They want to see, rather than trying beating us and getting the satisfaction of actually beating us on the pitch, they just tried to remove us from the Premier League, and just such anti-competitive attitude that is. Just like, ugh, come on, man. How sad, how low do you want to be? Beat us on the pitch. Beat us on the pitch. You can't do it right now. You're struggling. So this is your best hope. Get us relegated. I wouldn't want that. When we were scrapping around in League One, I loved the idea of facing Manchester United. And every season I was like, take on Manchester United. Take on Manchester United and beat them in a Manchester derby. And that last derby day at Main Road when we beat them 3-1, Sean Goater's 100th goal, Gary Neville fucking up and giving Goater's 99th goal. Beautiful. Beautiful day that was. One of the greatest days of my life, because I've never gotten to see properly Manchester City beat United convincingly as that as well. And the satisfaction I got from that was better than any sort of satisfaction I would get by not playing Manchester United and looking down at them in divisions below. Because beating them feels better. It feels better. And I tell you what, the Aguero goal, that was a level of ecstasy that can never be explained. You'll never understand that as a football fan, because we see things you can only dream of. You rival fans. That's all you can do is just fantasize about the idea of being a Manchester City fan right now. And don't tell me if a oil baron owner takes over Manchester City that you wouldn't be absolutely lapping it up. You'd be loving it. Absolutely loving it. Don't get me wrong, all those United fans that were sticking their feet in the ground saying they don't want Qatar ownership, okay, fine. But the majority of United fans, they were absolutely, come on, Qatar. That's what they were all going for, weren't they, those hypocritical twats? Honestly, you guys, you make me chuckle. You really do. And speaking of ownership model, we are taking over the world. Sheikh Mansour is taking over the world in many ways that I think most City fans and I think most rival fans, definitely the rival fans, will have no idea of what's going on behind the scenes. Because Sheikh Mansour, you think a man like Sheikh Mansour is going to allow the Premier League to take him down? that mismanaged, insignificant nobodies like the Premier League. They're just ex-football men. They're not even proper business-savvy individuals. You're going up against, like, Sheikh Mansour. You're going up against the firepower that is unseen, unrivaled and unmatched in this world. Royal family standard of firepower. You know, and it's not just like, oh, he's entitled because he's royal family. This guy is a business genius, because there's so many things that people aren't aware of what he's doing. Obviously, City fans are aware of the CFG, City Football Group, and you can see how City are buying football clubs all over the world and distributing the name City all over the world and having a network of football players that Manchester City are all going to get first dibs on. You only need to go and look at the La Liga table right now, and where are Girona right now? Second on goal difference, they were, as of last week, top of La Liga, 14 games into a La Liga season, and little Girona with a population of barely 100,000 people, sitting top of La Liga they were, and who are they owned by? Manchester City's City Football Group, Sheikh Mansour, in other words, who owns that. And all these crops of players that are appearing, we're going to start seeing it in other parts of the world. All the other clubs in Yokohama and New York and Melbourne. We've got loads of clubs all over the world now. We're going to see them climb the ranks of their respective leagues, all while promoting the idea of Manchester City, growing a global fan base in the process, and creating a network of players that Manchester City will very likely have first dibs on. You know, and all across the world, you know, we're going to see this domination, but it doesn't stop at football, because Sheikh Mansour's doing unbelievable things all over the world. I mean, obviously, he's taking over the Telegraph right now. There's strong reports suggesting that the Telegraph is in the bin financially, really, really struggling, and they've turned to Sheikh Mansour and his investment, which will give City some firepower in the media. And people say, oh, you don't want that. That's even worse. Even more horrible accusations can be levelled at Manchester City for controlling the media and being the puppeteers pulling strings of the media. Oh yeah, because that's not been going on for the last 100 years already. Do you know what I mean? As if the Sun doesn't have agendas. Ask Liverpool fans what they think of the Sun. Do you know what I mean? There's plenty of associations of newspapers who pick a side and they stick to it, and they print information and propaganda into the public that gives their message the brighter light and shits on the other side, basically, and then the opposing newspaper shits on them. That's kind of how it works. And now Manchester City, or Sheikh Mansour rather, is getting involved and buying a stake in the Telegraph, and is going to have power in what the Telegraph, Britain's biggest newspaper, is going to be controlled by Sheikh Mansour, potentially, and it doesn't stop there. Sizewell C nuclear power plant. That's how wild Sheikh Mansour and the reports are getting right now, that he's starting to take over the Sizewell C nuclear power plant. And do you know why he's doing that? Because right now you call us an oil club, don't you? But what's getting out of date in this world right now? What cars do you not want to see anymore? People in 10, 15 years, 20 years time, it's all going to be electric. So what does that do to oil? The value of oil is decreasing as a result of that, because the world is going green. And as a result of that, Sheikh Mansour, who's well ahead of the game, is investing in electrical side of things, in a nuclear power plant that's worth £20 billion that powers 6 million homes in the UK. So you football fans back home, when you get home and you turn your lights on and the light bulb goes bing and gives you power, and you can go ding and turn on and watch your football team, you can shake Sheikh Mansour's hand as a result of that and say, thank you, Sheikh Mansour, for powering my home. Because this nuclear power plant needs investment, and the UK as a whole needs investment right now, and they are trying to increase their relationships with these individuals like Sheikh Mansour, so when it eventually leaves the power and the jurisdiction of the Premier League, Sheikh Mansour is going to be connected with the UK as a whole. And then the UK are going to get in bed with Sheikh Mansour, because money talks. And it's not a case of cheating or anything like that. This is the Premier League not liking the idea of not being the top dog anymore. And there's a more powerful dog coming along, and he's biting the neck of the Premier League and cutting them at the jugular. And we're moving on from the Premier League. We're moving on. Your old news, Premier League, and you United fans and the Arsenal fans and your Liverpool fans and your historic prestige and history as a club, now you're becoming secondary to Manchester City. Because the financial power of Sheikh Mansour, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can paint your little pretty financial fair play loose, which has an immense amount of loopholes in it, which is what the whole case is founded on, by the way. These loopholes and laws that weren't there, such as pre-existing business relationships from businesses that Sheikh Mansour has friends and family involved in, to say, can you come and sponsor Manchester City? Those rules weren't in place in 2009. In 2009, those rules weren't there. And then eventually, like they do with the games rules, the football pitch rules, the financial rules, which, I mean, why there are financial rules, they need to be, that are so bent, it's untrue, that favour certain clubs and to the detriment of other clubs. It's clear as day, but these rules being constantly changed. And as of 2012, they added the rules of sponsorship deals can now no longer have pre-existing relationships and they need to be reviewed by the Premier League as a result. You can't go back retrospectively and apply rules that weren't in place when we played those games. You set the rules and we stayed within the lines between those rules. Now you're moving the goalposts and changing the lines. You can't go back and punish us for staying in the lines because now those lines aren't the same. Do you know what I mean? You can't go back retrospectively. It doesn't make sense. And then you've got the whole idea of the fact that the law itself, which is where this is heading, the courts, eventually, the contract British laws, which suggest that if you have a deed, you have 12 years of statute of limitations. The deed is transfer of goods, things like that, along the lines of financial wills and monetary situation, financial stuff, usually, things like that. The contract that City have set up, there's a deed versus a contract, and you've got 12 years for a deed, and you've got 6 years to appeal a breach of contract. 6 years in the UK. By UK law, that's the contract laws, okay? These are a real thing. Go and research it. You and I can research it. And I'm not a lawyer. So if I can access this information, so can you. So stop spouting your nonsense with zero facts to back it up. Go and do your research and find out what is the actual proceedings going forward. What do City have in their favour? What do the Premier League have in their favour? Very little. Very little, the Premier League, if you actually do your research. Whereas City have the contract laws set in place already that if you haven't approached or appealed this breach of contract within 6 years, the statute of limitations steps in and it's no longer relevant. And you're going back to 2009. So people are celebrating the idea of time barred. You could still be in a situation when it enters the court law of courts. You know what I mean? Court of law that will suggest that this will be done in 6 years. And you can't go back to 2009. So another problem for the Premier League to overcome. And they will try and factor in so many things to help them in the meantime. But this will eventually end up in the court of law, and it's going to be a long, grueling exercise of which City fans have to take it on the chin, whether you want to call it time barred or not. And talking about time barred as well, by the way, I mean, we talk about how City had their CAS case, which we can't go to, by the way. City fans wondering if we'll go to CAS as an appeal. We can't. We're going to skip CAS out. We're skipping sport. Sport's done. This will go to law after this. This will be law. That's where this will end up. But that was due to time bar situations. But I've done a recent video on how historically, all the other football clubs cheat. And apparently I'm not allowed to go back that far. But they're all loving the idea of an anti-time barred situation for Manchester City. It was like, oh, now they can go back. It isn't time barred anymore. But it is time barred for me to talk about Manchester United and Liverpool cheating in 1915 and agreeing to get in bed with one another, shaking hands and saying, let's agree that we'll take money as Liverpool off Manchester United to prevent their relegation in 1915. And you've got Arsenal's history of cheating, Brian Clough's history and accusations of cheating that go back. And Liverpool have got numerous accusations. United have got numerous accusations. City have got accusations with Billy Meredith going back to the early 90s as well. So much cheating went on back in the day. Honestly, so much. But apparently it's time barred to go back that far. Apparently. So it suits you, this time barred, when applicable. Very selective, aren't you, with your time barred stuff. But it's a long way to go. There's a long way to go, Blues. And as of right now, the next time we probably hear a verdict, at least, will be the end of the 24-25 season. The issue for me is that that's when Pep's contract expires. That's a bigger issue for me. And coinciding with this potential problem or verdict that may come from the Premier League, and we have to go to court away from football and deal with it alongside Pep Guardiola's contract expiring. Who knows what he might do? He might stay for another 3 years beyond that, and we could see until 27, 28 maybe. Who knows? Maybe. It's hard to say. But Pep Guardiola leaving is a bigger issue for me. That scares me more than anything that the Premier League can throw at us. But what do you think, Blues? What do you think? What do you think, rival fans? I know what you think. I know what you think already. You're very, very transparent, the lot of you. You're very predictable. Very predictable. But Blues, Get in the comments below. I want to hear your thoughts because you're not transparent. You're very lovable. And thank you for my 7,000 subscribers as well. Much appreciated. Help by subscribing to this channel. Drop a like as well. Typical City, the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.
This is typical City now, holding up Silverwood.